Thank you for joining me for lesson 9 of Sefer HaMitzvos. Today we're learning 4 mitzvot. The first will be positive number 207, the second negative 302, and then positive 205 and negative 303. Um, we're starting out with positive mitzvah number 207. There are two previous um, commands to love that are positive commandments to love God, and then to love your neighbor as yourself or your fellow as yourself. And this is the third command regarding love, and this is specifically to love the ger. Um, and that is in Deuteronomy 10:19. It says uh, that you should love the ger, and so we're commanded um, to love them. Now, who is the ger? This is defined by all Jewish authorities specifically to refer to a convert. That doesn't mean we're not supposed to love others beyond that, but we're specifically to have a love for those who have converted and become Jews who were not obligated previously to the Torah in its fullest sense, and also they didn't have this persecution that was on them, all kinds of other hardships that comes with converting and becoming a Jewish person, and so that person is now starting out at a disadvantage because they got to kind of play catch up. They didn't grow up as a from a youth into adulthood in a religious background or a Jewish religious background, and so we need to love them. We can't shame them. We can't make them feel embarrassed about the fact that they're in that growing phase. But also, we need to remember that we're all learning and growing. Um, there's even among people who were naturally born Jews. We're also in a process. A lot of us in a process of teshuvah, of repentance, and becoming more refined in our observance. So we're to love the convert, and I would also extend that. Now, this is not Rambam. This is not what he's saying, but I would extend that to even to the Gentiles who are God-fearing Gentiles who are um, casting off idolatry and their former ways, and they are cleaving themselves to the people of Israel. And so, in that sense, they've taken on more than perhaps they were previously obligated to, and they do have a somewhat different status now. There used to be in uh, the eras when there was a Torah government in the land of Israel. There was a status called the Ger Toshav, and the Ger Toshav is not something that is an official status right now, but it is a status that some say that a Gentile can occupy that status in some sense, just from their own voluntary uh, conviction in their heart. However, um, one day that status will be an official status once again, and that comes with a whole lot of other uh, benefits and positive commandments and negative commandments that are related, specifically to the ger toshav. Um, but what we're talking about here, specifically in what Rambam is saying, is that we're to love the ger, or the what we call the ger tzedek, which is someone who has taken on a new identity, specifically as a Jew. So, in the Jewish legal context of understanding the mitzvot, that is how we're defining this. Though, like I said, I think that it also broadly goes toward people beyond those who are literally Jewish brothers and sisters, but also our other brothers and sisters among the nations as well. Harboring hatred. Leviticus 19:17 says, "You shall not hate your brother in your heart." What's the very next verse? You shall love your neighbor as yourself, or your brother as yourself. So not to hate your brother. So we're forbidden to harbor hatred for our brothers and sisters in our heart. Instead, if somebody has done something wrong to us, we should go and confront that person and tell them that we've been hurt, and ask for an explanation or an apology. However, Rambam says in Mishnah Torah that if you're a truly pious person, you won't even go to that person. You will be hurt by them. Perhaps they were unintentionally rude to you, but and we're not saying that they necessarily did a sin, but they were rude or offended you or something like that. And so the higher attribute of the higher, what's the word I'm looking for, that the better thing for you to do is to basically turn the other cheek, and not even have to get to that point of going to that person. But if you do have hatred in your heart toward that person, then you are required by the Torah to go to that person and request an explanation or an apology, to have a conversation with that person, so that you can get that out. And Yeah, so if you get it out of out, the fact that you have these feelings, and to ask their for their apology, or however it plays out, then you are automatically not going to transgress this commandment. So don't harbor it within your heart. Rebuking. You shall certainly rebuke your neighbor. So this is also Leviticus 19:17. And it says that we're commanded to rebuke someone, a brother or sister who has sinned, and to prevent someone who's about to sin. And we're supposed to do that as many times as necessary until that person does not sin, then they listen. However, if the person strikes you and says, "I will not listen to you," then at that point you're released. We don't rebuke people who are wicked, who aren't going to listen. All right. Um, and included in this commandment is the obligation to rebuke someone who has wronged you, as opposed to silently harboring the grudge against that individual, which we talked about previously. All right. And then finally, negative mitzvah number 303, and don't bear sin because of him. And again, we're still in Leviticus 19, verse 17. So we said that you don't hate your brother in your heart. You shall certainly rebuke your brother, and don't bear sin because of him. So how do we not bear sin because of him? What that means is when you go to your brother, and if you are going to rebuke that person in private, or if you have that grudge against them, that you do so in private, but even in a way in private where you're not going to embarrass that person. And how much more so if it ends up happening, something happens in private that we're not, or excuse me, in public, that we're not to cause embarrassment to someone. It's a very grave sin to do so. All right. So those are the commandments for today. Uh, Please join me tomorrow. With God's help, we will learn some more mitzvahs tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, and be blessed.